About SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. Let's first start with the large intestine. In the large intestine, most of the time we're talking about the large intestine. We talk about the good bacteria and the bad bacteria, right? And we say there needs to be a nice balance in that ecosystem. And when you have nice balance of good bacteria and bad bacteria, then your digestion is good, you're having bowel movements after every meal, you're not gassy, you're not bloated, things of that nature. When you, let's say, take antibiotics, what happens? Right. Kills the good and bad bacteria. It doesn't discriminate. So now you got this, what we call dysbiosis going on. A little bit of good, a little bit of bad. Things are not in balance. Sometimes we have a little candida in here. When you kill off the good bacteria and the bad bacteria, the candida begin to rise. So sometimes people get a yeast infection when they're on antibiotics. So when you're on antibiotics, you always want to replenish with good bacteria, probiotic, while you're on the antibiotic. A lot of times people will wait, but you want to replenish, and then yes, the antibiotic is gonna kill off some that you just put in, but you're not just gonna get all the way down to minuscule and then have to repopulate. So you're repopulating, it's killing a little bit that you put in, and then you're continuing to repopulate until you continue to build, and then that decreases the risk of you having yeast infections, sinus infections, all different types of problems. So now let's switch over to the small intestine. So this would be our small intestine. This area is actually kind of sterile when it comes to bacteria. So we just have a small amount of bacteria in the small intestines. And so when you have an overabundance, this is going to cause some problems, because this is supposed to be going on in the large intestine and not the small intestine. And so antibiotics, constipation, acid reflux, diarrhea with food poisoning can cause gallbladder issues. It can cause this bacteria to begin to accumulate in the small intestines, and you don't want that. When that occurs, you start to have gastrointestinal issues, gas, bloating. Most people describe it as they wake up in the morning, their stomach is flat. By the end of the day, they look like they're 3 months pregnant because they're so bloated throughout the day. One young lady came in, and she was like, I just belch all the time. And so her husband had her count the number of times she belched in 30 minutes, and it was like 100. I'm like, yeah, so you get this excess gas buildup because these bacteria are actually producing gas. And so you get the bloating, you get the sometimes constipation, sometimes diarrhea, sometimes anything you put in immediately is going right out. And so most of the time we're trying to fix the large intestines, and sometimes that'll be a little fix, but it doesn't take care of the whole cause, because the main cause is right here in the small intestines. So you're having small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So this bacteria is overgrown inside the small intestine and it should not be there. Another thing happens is motility. We heard of like peristalsis movement in the large intestine, so that you can have a bowel movement. Every now and then those muscles just kind of move. Well, you have that same type of movement in the small intestines. And when you have SIBO, what will happen is that motility actually decreases. So it gets smaller and smaller, or it just decreases. So you don't have that motility as you should, which then increases the amount of bacteria in your intestines. So there is a wonderful way to actually test this. You can actually test it by gas, by your breath, because these bacteria are creating gases in your small intestine. So I send you home with a kit, and you blow into these tubes, 10 tubes. Every 20 minutes you're blowing, and they're actually collecting the amount of gas. We send it off to the lab, and then they'll see the amount of gas that you're actually producing, hydrogen, methane gases that you should not be producing in the small intestines. And then we have a nice natural way to actually kill this overgrowth of bacteria in your small intestine. So I sent out a constant contact today. If you got that, it's talking about SIBO. And if you know someone, or if you yourself are having some issues with intestinal problems, there is a coupon for 20% off for a consultation. So if you don't have an issue, if you know somebody else that has an issue, you can go ahead and give them that coupon.